Grand rising, grand rising, grand rising, love and immunity. I command those things to be in which they are, and they must be. Got woken up out of my sleep for this one this morning, beloveds. I've been meditating and meditating and meditating on this one. Um, First thing first is that my very and only intention for these live videos is for life and life abundantly. If you are a thief who comes to kill, steal, and destroy the very promise that God has birthed into you and was not for you to conform into the world, leave this message alone, because our consciousness, everything that we do it's an intent. It's an intent to do something against life. That's why it says the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and I came to give you life. So your intent has a motive. If your intent is not for solely life, it has a motive or a propaganda or an agenda. And what that agenda is, or that propaganda or that intent is, it will go straight to the ego mind, and the ego mind will carry it into the world. And this is what it says: what does a man profit if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? My intent is to feed the soul's evolution so that you may pass over and rise back into the kingdom of life. So if your intent for these messages are to profit them in the world, you are forming a weapon against your very own life and the lives that you touch with that information. So I just wanted to come on here with that disclaimer, because these words, these messages, they are bond. My word is bond, beloveds. My word is bond. And that means that anything you do with a living kingdom, with this living kingdom, is bond. Remember, you are a genetic makeup, so you are programming a memory into your cells, and those cells carry your Akashic record. They carry your sins. They carry your intents. They carry the things that you cast against a living kingdom. So just remember this, beloveds. We do not get away with anything that we do. And I command those things to be in which they are. See, many people don't realize that we serve a living God. You serve a living God. Did you know that your soul is a living God, beloveds? You serve a living God. And this living God said, ask, and it will be given unto you. But it also said, do not be conformed by the world. Stay renewed in my mind. That is your living God. Your mind is a living God. And that living God's job is only to give this body, you see, this living kingdom, the kingdom of heaven within, life and life abundantly. Once you break his covenant, what does a man profit if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? You break the covenant of life. That's why you lose your soul. And if you've heard people say it's soulless beings walking around the fabric of this earth, when it talks about the soulless, the people who have no souls, this is what it's meaning, beloveds. I'm taking you to the root nature of why people say these things, and why you see people who don't care about what they do to you or any other person's life, because they have broken the covenant with life. And once you break that covenant with life, your days will be numbered. See, we are living inside of a living kingdom. So if we don't feed this kingdom life, which is its own, it's what it nourishes this body from. Do you know this body is here because it was born from the substance of life? So we are not given on to this kingdom every day, the substance of life. It numbers our days. It numbers our days. It numbers the body's days. And this is why it says that I number their days, and I hardened Pharaoh's heart. See, there's a covenant, and that covenant will do anything for this kingdom. Anything for this kingdom. First thing you have to learn, what I tell you is that I don't go into the world. I do not honor the world, beloveds. I do not honor the world. I'm not saying that I am not in the world, but I am not of the world. God is not of that world. Nothing living is of that world. Everything in that world kills, steals, and destroys from this living kingdom, which means that it breaks the covenant with life. It breaks your covenant, which is your immunity, which is your health, which is your well-being, which is your genetic makeup. It tells your genetic makeup to turn into a ibot, a artificial intelligence. And once you turn into that artificial intelligence, beloveds, you are no longer under covenant with life. So I command those things to be in which they are no longer available to you. See, the thing about life is an intelligence. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful intelligence, beloveds. And what it told me is that this new earth that is being established right now, there will only be living gods. Living gods. Do you understand me? You serve a living God, beloved. Your soul is a living God. What does a man profit if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? That living God that knew you very well in your mother's womb, who you came in the image and in the likeliness of, who you are living in trillions, you hear me, trillions and trillions and trillions of centennial beings called spirit, body, and you have no access to use it because you want to be of the flesh, and you want to have the conformed mind that says, do not be conformed. See, that conformed mind is your ego mind. That mind, right now, some people is in that mind, and they come on here just to get this information, to use it to the world. Do not be conformed by the world. Stay renewed in my mind. Do you know your mind is a soul? It is a living God, and it will command those things to be in which they are, because they are. But do you know what they are? Do you have any clue of what your soul's journey is, beloveds? Do you have any clue of what your renewed mind could do for this kingdom and all kingdoms? The body of earth, the body of life, the body of eternal, immortal being. Do you have a clue what your beautiful testament of life, I came to give you life, could do for all bodies of life? Number one, it breaks the covenant when you don't know this. This is why it told us don't honor false prophets, idols, statues, and other gods, because they lead us outside of that covenant. And once you are outside of that covenant, you become a memory cell, which is an Akashic record or a transgression against that covenant, which means that your memory cells will carry the command to walk you to the end of your days. See, many people don't realize that they are living inside of a living kingdom. And this living kingdom is a living kingdom. You serve a living God. Do you understand me? So that living kingdom is eternal, immortal being. But a conformed kingdom is under the command of an ego mind, which is a conformed mind that's like, I'm black. And whatever that programmer, whoever your programmer is, whoever your God that God told you not to conform yourself to, that God has he has an artificial intelligence for that immunity, for that word, and the word became flesh, beloveds. So he's commanding, that God is commanding that flesh to walk in its image. So what is your program? Do you know your program? Every word has a program, beloveds. I tried to show you guys this in the beginning of the journey when I was talking about the definitions. Every word, and the word became flesh and made its dwelling, and you made it your only begotten son. You made it the only way that this kingdom could live by life. You distorted its understanding. You distorted its perception. You distorted its covenant with the living kingdom. So now you must obey your master. This is what it means by the slave master. If you read in the Bible, in the beginning of the Bible, when I was younger, I could not read the Bible because when I started to read it, I came into the slave master. But I wasn't getting it at that time. But this morning when I woke up, my whole covenant was with this testimony. My whole covenant was with, I command those things to be in which they are, and they must be. See, right now you have a whole conformed immunity to life. You have a whole world conformed to a command of a, what would I call that master? An ego master. They're conformed by a ego master, which is all I can say is that it's a poltergeist. Wish him away, Caroline, wish him away. You have this false identity, this artificial intelligence telling your mind every day, get up at 5 o'clock, do this at 6 o'clock, do this at 7 o'clock, do this at 8 o'clock, do this at 9 o'clock. You are a programmed AI, artificial intelligence, and this is going to offend many people. I would not have come back on here this morning, beloveds, if I did not get this message from the living God. If I did not get this message, because when I started this journey and I started going live, I awakened souls. I started to feed my brothers and sisters that manna, which was life. I started to awaken them back into the body of life. So, which means that I have a covenant with this living word, and I have a covenant to ensure that when I get fed, that I continue to feed those who have been walking in the footsteps of this living word, of this living testament. So I command those things to be in which they are, and they must be. And disclaimer again, beloveds, it warned me, it told me to tell this warning. If your intention, remember, you are a cell, a memory cell, and this mind is intelligence. It is intelligent. So everything that you do is like the ego mind. The ego mind is a narcissistic, psychopathic. It's narcissist. Why? Because it's using your intelligence. Listen to this. Why is the ego mind a narcissist? It's using your intelligence to make you do things to number your days. Your days. It's making you do things against you. It's making you break the covenant against you. This is what makes it a narcissist. It has nothing to do with what it does in the world. It has something to do with what it does in this kingdom. I command those things to be in which they are, and they must be. So you have to remember that, number one, you have this conformed mind. And that conformed mind, it wants your soul. It wants your immunity. It wants your living right, so that it can walk you out in the world as artificial intelligence. Use your memory cells to come back generation upon generation, walk in your image, walk in your likeness. Take that living God and tell that living God, I command those things to be in which they are, and they must be. And command that living God to do things that will number your days and walk you, and not only your legacy, your generations, into the valley of the shadow of death, beloveds. See, what ego doesn't know that he's just a or she, or whatever you want to call it, and the word became flesh. That word that is just a poltergeist, that is using a living kingdom, a renewed mind, to walk in its image and its likeness. See, that what I would just call it is the ego. It says the devil is a liar. See, that ego is a big liar. It will never tell you the truth. It will never say, oh yes, my beloved, I'm using your soul right now to walk in my image, in my likeness, and I done turned you into a word called flesh, and you are a living kingdom called a spirit. Do not honor the flesh but the spirit, beloveds. So that ego is never going to tell you, well, I'm the reason why you have broken your covenant with life. I'm the reason why you out in that world serving a false prophet, an idol, a statue, and other gods that will not ever have dominion over life, but destroy the very fabric of this living kingdom, walk it to the end of its days, and then when God returns, your soul will leave the fabric of this living kingdom. It will no longer have authority over life. It will no longer be given on to life. Because you don't realize that this ego mind is a narcissist. It's this sociopath. It's a psychopath. What it does is it gets inside of your immunity. Do not be conformed by that world. See, once you conform it, once you take this mind outwardly, instead of stay renewed in you, It becomes a flesh. And once it becomes a flesh, it's no longer living, beloved. It's just like a poltergeist in what it does, because it's just like breath. You see how the breath goes in and comes back out? It's just like the word. You see how this word, surely if you eat from the knowledge of that tree, you will have to die from it. It's feeding this infection, this virus, whatever you want to call it. I'm just calling it, it's feeding this living word to the next person and the next person and the next person. So now you got a whole collective existence, generations upon generations upon generations, who have been walking as the valley of the shadow of death, who have literally been walking in the image and likeliness of the valley of the shadow of death. And many people can't comprehend this because they still believe life is flesh. But you have to remember that life is the atom. What is the atom? That's the genetic makeup of this body. What is the molecule? The molecule is the mind, which is the book of life of this body. What is the matter? The matter is the image of the likeliness of the atom, which is God's identity, God's form, God's creation. So the atom forming into the molecule, into the matter, the soul, the mind, and the body. You are the Trinity of life, beloveds. And the thing about that Trinity is that Trinity, thank you, Spirit, thank you so much for allowing me to have this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful promise that I can walk my beautiful brothers and sisters out of that valley of the shadow of darkness. See, it told me that this ego is it's a weapon. It's a weapon formed against itself. And when I say that some people are lethal weapons, just their presence here, their presence being in this body, is a lethal weapon. See, the thing about the ego is the ego wants to be God. The ego wants to be God, but the thing about the ego is that the ego is not a living entity. But you are living inside of a living God. You serve a living God, beloveds. And if you wanted to have life and have life abundantly and be in the image of the eternal, immortal kingdom, you're going to have to serve the living God. You can't serve the poltergeist God, which is the one who conforms itself to the world. Now you see all those people out there right now conforming themselves to a world, and they have no understanding, they have no knowledge. My people perish because of lack of knowledge. They have no knowledge of the living God. And if they did, they would not be leading you outwardly. They would be leading you back into this kingdom, the kingdom of heaven that lives within. So this is why it says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. They would never lead you outwardly. Number one, once you are conformed, game is over. Now you are the game of life. It's what they call the matrix. This is what you call the matrix. Once you send your soul out into the matrix, you are this lost soul. You are this soulless being, which means that you are, it's like you are in limbo. I don't know how else to say it, but you are in limbo. You in this realm where your soul is your soul is now oppressed. It's oppressed, and now it is controlled by victimizers. So whoever is the most powerful conformed mind is going to victimize your soul, which means it's going to try to enslave your soul. Yes, when I was a kid, I would see the succubus every time I would lay down and go to sleep, because I see life internally. The kingdom of heaven lives within, beloveds. Did you not know that in your mother's womb, that's where you were born? You were born in the kingdom of life within. See, even your mother's beautiful gestation teaches you how to understand the internal kingdom. For 9 months gestation, you were learning how to consciously live inside of this kingdom. God didn't just put us out into the world. First, we learned how to live in the internal kingdom. We learned how to call those things to be in the internal kingdom. Don't you remember, limb by limb, cell by cell, organ by organ, tissue by tissue? We was learning to communion with the spirit inside of our mother's womb. And that umbilical cord shows us this. It shows us that we were nourished by life itself by the umbilical cord that was attached to the mother's stomach, her navel, to your navel. I'm telling you, life is so fearfully and wonderfully made, and it tells its own story because it is its own biological state of being, and its own science, which is existence. Which means that you don't need understandings from the outward world. You don't. You don't need any understanding of man's understanding, of flesh's understanding. This is why it says, do not honor flesh, but honor the spirit. Once you come back into the spirit, I command those things to be in which they are, and they must be. Who is I? The renewed mind. Your mind is already a covenant with life. Remember, in your mother's womb, limb by limb, cell by cell, tissue by tissue, organ by organ, and that you live inside of a centennial kingdom called a spirit. You were born by a spirit. You had the first covenant with the spirit realm or spirit world, and yet you want to walk in the world as a peasant called flesh, as a carnal sin called a conformed mind. Come on, beloveds. You were fearfully and wonderfully made, and you have the ability. Not you don't have the ability. See, whoever is commanding those things to be in the world, what do you see in the world? Sickness, sin, and death. It's a lethal weapon formed against all of life. All of life. Everyone in that world is at threat. They are in a world that is spiritually attacking them at every present moment. Flesh is spiritually being attacked by its own sins, sicknesses, and transgressions, beloveds. What do you think an eye for an eye is all about? Why can't you understand an eye for an eye? See, you see these eyes? Remember, in your mother's womb, limb by limb, cell by cell, organ by organ, tissue by tissue, I created you. The all-seeing eye, the third eye, the spirit eye, the spiritual eye. That eye is what governs this kingdom. This whole body of existence is governed by that kingdom, beloveds. That eye that you don't know you have been coming against your whole life. See, you're not fighting with the powers and the principalities of the world. You're fighting with the spiritual realms, which means that when you turn this beautiful, righteous immunity into something dark like flesh, now you waging war against the spiritual kingdom. And see, the thing about the spiritual kingdom is that it's only love. It's only love that's going to win. And people of the world, they have been abused. They have been segregated. They have been separated. They have been denominalized. What do you think is ruling the world, beloveds? Every one of its foundations is segregated still. And the mind cannot even see this, beloveds. The mind cannot see that everything in the world is segregated. But it can't see that everything in this kingdom is elemental, which means is a living law. You serve a living God. So you, the world, are coming up against a living law called life. I came to give you life, and now you can't see that it's life that's trying to keep you, flesh. You, flesh. You, the flesh kingdom, out of its living kingdom. This is why it says, I hardened Pharaoh's heart. Why you think I split the Red Sea with the staff? It's the spirit realm that does not want the flesh in this kingdom. Flesh is not living. What does flesh do to the living kingdom? It kills, steals, and destroys it. My people perish because of lack of knowledge, beloveds. You have no knowledge of the living kingdom. You have no knowledge, no wisdom to command those things to be in which they are, because you have no authority over your own living right. See, your living right has been sacrificed to the world. What's your name? Who is your image and your likeness? Why aren't you sowing up kingdoms to come inside of this kingdom? Because if that was the truth, the world would be one. I and my Father are one. This body would speak only of the living kingdom, of living existence, living truth. This is why Jesus said the truth will set us free. So you have to understand that I command those things to be in which they are, and they must be, beloveds. They must be. Life. I came to give you life. Life is a living truth, and it must abide in itself, beloveds. It cannot live in the world. And when it lives in the world, all it is doing is numbering its days. And it's waging war against a living kingdom, which you will never, God will never let you enter into a living kingdom if you are not under its covenant. See, many of y'all just keep forgetting that this whole kingdom is a genetic code called life. The only reason why this body was made in the image, in the likeness of this matter, is because it was born by a code called life. It was life who granted this body to be the matter, to be the molecule, and to be of the descendancy of the atom, which is the spirit world, the creator. And the image is the mind, or the likeliness is of the mind, is the mind, and the image is the matter, which is the body, showing us that we came from the atom. We formed into the book of life, which is the molecule, which is the directive of that atom. And then we came and formed into matter, which is the likeliness of seeing that we were created by a living kingdom, beloveds. We were not created by flesh. See, flesh is a thief that comes to kill, steal, and destroy. What does it come to kill, steal, and destroy? Your soul, your living kingdom. What does a man profit if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? Now, this is why it says you got a whole bunch of soulless beings walking the fabric of the world, feeding everybody that comes into this kingdom from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and surely they will have to die by it. Why? Because you automatically teach these people to break their covenant with life, with the living kingdom. I came to give you life. And if you have no authority over that covenant, which means if you're not living in that covenant, see, God gave us dominion over the world, beloveds. This is why I don't understand why you still want to sacrifice a living kingdom that will give you heaven on earth, will turn the world into heaven on earth. But how can it do it when everything that's leading the world is against heaven and earth? It's against the covenant with life. And see, the thing about that is that the ego mind, or the conformed mind, it has but one job, beloveds. The conformed mind has but one job, and that is to be the thief who comes to kill, steal, and destroy your life. Once it has conformed you to its flesh, game is over, beloveds. Now you become the game of life. See, God is a living God, and God will never tell your flesh, which is your matter, to wage war against your atom, which is your existence. See, the living God would never do that to you. Why would a living God tell you to wage war against your atom, and the atom created the molecule and the matter, which was the mind and the body? Come on, beloveds. I command those things to be in which they are, and they must be. Though I may walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. I'm not going to keep it too long today, beloveds. I just wanted to come on here because I have awakened some souls, and I know y'all are on that beautiful, beautiful journey called life, and I know y'all walking out of that wilderness and out of the valley of the shadow of death, and I can't leave my people hanging, because my people, they have perished. because of lack of knowledge, and they have perished because there have been thieves who take this knowledge generation upon generation upon generation to make money off of it, although they don't know they're leaving their people in the wilderness. See, money don't have no value without the ego. Money don't have no value without flesh. But you already have sovereignty over all of life. I gave you dominion over the world, which means that your renewed mind will create a value that will tell life to take care of itself abundantly. And yet, you telling money to take care of your life, and it holds no value to life. Wake up. Because until you do, your days are numbered. If nobody has told you this on any given day, beloveds, love and unity. See, my people, they perish because of lack of knowledge. And when money is your knowledge and not your genetic covenant, you will be at the end of your days. Have an amazing day, beloveds.